growing pineapples is really easy and enjoyable. But I want to show you something very important with regard to buying pineapples from the store. You may think that buying organic is guaranteeing you that you're going to get better fruit. Well, I want to show you something. These are 2 pineapple tops that I'm rooting. The one on the right is a store-bought organic, and the one on the left is one that I grew. I've been growing them for many years. I have several generations. I began with one from a store, and once I produced offspring from that, etc., etc. Over the generations, mine are purely organic because I grow them without any kind of chemicals. So, here's the thing. The one here on the left is one that I just harvested 6 weeks ago. And it has roots starting. Can you see that white one right there? Nice long one glowing in the sun. There's shorter ones too. There's one right there and one up there. Can you see them? Actually, there's another one right there as well, a 4th one. So this is 6 weeks ago that I cut this fruit and ate it. The one on the right is a store-bought organic that I ate 3 months ago. And as you can see by the difference, look at how much has decomposed down here while it's been sitting. Compare that to this one. There's no decomposition at all. Look, this is still green because this is only 6 weeks old. But more than that, unfortunately, I can't show you because I only have these 2. But when this one was 6 weeks old, it was already decomposing. Now, this will still root. You just have to give it enough time. It could take 6 months before it finally produces roots. It's important to keep changing the water and make sure that when you water it on top so that the water soaks down through. See, this one is still glistening. But as you can see, there's a huge difference between one that was grown without chemicals and one that was grown with. Even so-called organic chemicals are still chemicals. Not to mention the fact that this one was picked and then immediately eaten, enjoyed, and the top put away. And so this was still very much alive, where this had been transported. Who knows how long ago it was picked before I purchased it. So there's just so many differences. There's no comparison. So if you want to enjoy a really good pineapple, grow it yourself. So on that note, I'm going to now plant this one. And I'll show you a couple of tips about that as well. So here's some soil, fresh from the forest, sandy and moist. Now, the moist part is very important. As you can see, I have this little pot inside of a larger one that's watertight, and I've got a little bit of water down in there, so it's actually sitting in water, and that's important. See how this soil is very moist. This is very sandy, so normally we would just be seeing a cloud of sand while I move the soil around. I'm loosening it up. I've been preparing for this for a while, so this has been quite saturated and it's quite thick. So I've opened up a nice hole here, and let's get that pineapple. Look at that beautiful first long root with those other ones that are getting ready to join in the fun. So I'm going to get my hands dirty here. We want to make this opening the right shape to accommodate this so that it's sitting flatly in there, because it's got a flat bottom, obviously, since it was cut with a knife. This is all going to fall away eventually, and there will just be the bottom of this core. And you can see there that wet spot down there. But we want to save it because it's actually going to be food. Okay, that's still a little too deep. So we'll just add some more. That's still a little too deep. That's perfect. So now we'll just put some of this down to there to get it very loosely buried. Now we're going to pour this water very liberally around it to help the sand to work its way in. Huh. Is that a little persimmon seed? No, that's a squash seed. We don't really need any squash growing in here. There's plenty growing outside. Okay, so now, while that water is slowly working its way down, it's obviously saturated, so it's going to take a little while, which is fine. That gives us time to very gently pack this very wet soil, because we don't want to damage those very fragile roots. And that's it. Now, the reason that it's sitting in this pot with water in it, I'm actually going to add a little more to the pot. Actually, let's add lots. All of it. That way, because this is a very short-term operation, the goal is for those new roots to be always wet. But we don't want this to be in this situation, say 6 months from now, because it'll all just rot and die. But I would say at least for 2 months. We want this to be in this situation, and over that time period, I will allow the water level to slowly get lower and lower. It has to be changed occasionally because you don't want it to get any kind of mold or any other kind of bacterial growth. So you want to change the water from time to time, maybe once a week. And as you do, just slowly allow that water level to get lower and lower. At first, we want it to be sitting right in wet, very wet soil to encourage those roots to keep growing and for other ones to grow as well. And then after a few months, and you can check on it from time to time, especially when you're just watering it. Pour a lot of water on the top so that it's loose like this. And then you can easily just dig like that, depending on what kind of soil you're using. This is easy with sand, obviously, as you can see. And just check on the root progress. And once you see that there's lots of healthy roots, then it's time to transplant this into a much larger pot, and then you don't have to do this anymore. You can just treat it like any other potted plant. So that's all there is to this now. Oh, and one other thing is during this initial stage, you don't want it to be out in the direct sun. It needs to be in this sort of condition here. It's inside my veranda, so it only gets the morning sun, and once the sun is overhead, it's in shade. That's perfect. And by the time you transplant it, it'll be winter time here. It'll be indoors anyways. Obviously, you can't keep it outside during the winter in a cold place. And so that's the perfect time to transplant it into a bigger pot, and you don't have to keep it in the water anymore. And in a year, you'll be eating a pineapple.